Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic podcast, a space to honor women's rites of passage stories. From menarche to menopause, the initiations of womanhood all live within our wombs. Through our first bleed to our last, we come to know ourselves more deeply. This is a platform to reclaim the sacredness of all of it. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, birth keeper and women's coach, specializing in womb wellness and hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being patient with me as I took a week off for technical difficulties and also partly just a week off to be present to life, which is something that, has just kind of been up for me. I've spent quite a few years really building my business and being very intentional about my routines and ways of being. And I'm so grateful for that. I've really been able to create and cultivate so much, including this podcast space, which is where I'm directing a lot of my energy here and with my virtual clients. And also, as my time in Hawaii comes to an end, I find myself so grateful for the invitations into more play and less rigidity, and leaving space, really leaving space for my heart's truth to be heard, for the invitations that are so much better than anything I ever could have planned to be heard as well. So maybe some of that resonates with you if you're listening in real time. The Scorpio full moon was yesterday, and that was a big moment for me, and perhaps some of you too who are in tune with this moon energy. So just, really inviting you, if you're listening, to slow down in this moment as things begin to speed up. It's kind of a paradox, but also it does make sense. Like when life starts to get full and big and beautiful as it does in this summer season, can you slow down and really be with all that beauty and all that joy and really claim everything that life has to offer us? Because even amidst the challenge and the grief and everything, can we keep an open heart, and can we be present to our experience? Because your experience is your own personal myth, and it's unfolding right before your very eyes. So inviting you into that level of presence today. I realized that my Saturn return starts this month. I thought I was already in it. It shows you my depth of understanding in astrology, but it begins in 2 weeks and I am feeling it. And I guess if you were born between a certain month in 1996 and 1998, so I was born in October of 96, your Saturn return also begins at the end of May. And so if you're feeling like weirdness or stuckness or shifts or whatever it might be, just inviting you into this place of slowing down and being present to what is here for you. And it doesn't need to make sense yet. Something I really felt as I was looking at the moonrise over the ocean last night is when we're present, everything's going to be okay. Everything's really going to be okay. And we don't have to have it figured out yet. And there's so much magic and so much beauty available to us in each and every moment. And life really can be a thing of our own creation, of our own making. So anyways, without further ado, I want to get into today's episode, which is an episode with my dear teacher and mentor, Nancy Lucina. So before I get into the description for this episode, I want to share that at the end of every episode, I invite the woman who has been sharing her beautiful stories to share her offerings. And Nancy was alluded to at the end that she feels some offerings that are coming in, like a Substack and perhaps something deeper around experiences, like her experiences that have really guided her into creating something. And at the time of this recording, she hadn't created it yet, but now she has. And so I wanted to share with you that Nancy has created a program called Luminosity. And Luminosity is a 7-week ceremonial journey to help women transmute emotions, awaken their essence, and reclaim their radiance beginning May 22nd. And so all of these things I was just talking about, being in the stuck, the what, the what am I doing? How do I transmute all of this into like something magic and beautiful because you truly can? Nancy is doing that. So it came through for her during a deep time of grief, which she does share about in this episode after the loss of her daughter, Lilah. And this program is part of her and Lilah's legacy, born in the knowing that we can't bypass the hard parts of life. And like nature, we must compost it all, our fear, our grief, our shame, if we want to keep evolving, if we want to stay in intimate relationship with life. So in this program, Luminosity, you will be meeting once a week. Each container will be a different energetic center and ceremony from your root chakra all the way to your crown. And you'll work with the emotional layers held there, offering up what's heavy and inviting in the opportunity of what wants to shine. So it's a space for deep transmutation, for becoming the woman you want to be, reconnecting to your light, not the performative kind, but the real radiant one that comes from within. You will leave this container with the tools you carry in your body. You'll be more rooted in your power, and you'll remember how to live from your essence. Gosh, that's so much of what I've been feeling, like coming back to my true essence. And sometimes we just need the spaciousness, not like more information, not more control, but more surrender in order to fully receive our true essence. So you can find the link to Luminosity in the show notes below, as well as the link to everything that I offer, including one-on-one sessions to work on any specific womb health, hormonal challenges, or just living more in tune with your cycle. I've been really enjoying working with clients this year and am grateful to have space for a few more. You'll also find the link to the Cyclical Living Circle, which is my community membership with twice a month calls, as well as a link to connect with me on Instagram and to download the Womb Cycle Spotify playlists to connect with each phase of your cycle. All right, now without further ado, today on the podcast, we have Nancy. Nancy shares her profound journey through the various stages of womanhood, guided by the wisdom of her womb the whole way. From her orientation towards spirituality at a young age and a courageous move across the country to truly discover her spiritual path, to Nancy's unexpected first pregnancy that initiated her into motherhood in a big way, this episode is full of stories of deep trust. A significant portion of Nancy's story is dedicated to the birth stories of her 4 children, which includes the birth and loss of her baby Lilah at 27 weeks. This experience deeply affected Nancy's spiritual path and further solidified her trust in her womb's guidance. Throughout the episode, Nancy emphasizes the importance of trusting the womb's wisdom, embracing the cyclical nature of life, and finding presence amidst profound grief. Her journey highlights the transformative power of fully embodying each phase of womanhood and the deep spiritual insights that arise from these experiences. So let's tune in to Nancy's beautiful episode. All right. Hey, Nancy, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so fun. And for those of you listening, I've had Kristen Hauser on the podcast, who was one of my teachers in the Blood Mysteries School, the program I did that really was like the biggest basis of my learning in all of this work. And Nancy is the other teacher I had. And so I'm so excited to have you on, Nancy, because yeah, like you and the way that you have taught this work, specifically from like the archetypal lens, has been such an inspiring factor for the work I've brought to the world. And I'm just so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. It's been super fun to follow your work as well after the school and see all the amazing things you're putting out, including this. So I'm just really happy to be here too.
Yay. Well, I'm excited to see what we get into. And the first thing I love to start with is I'd love for you to share what phase of your cycle you're in. And then after that, we can chat a little about like the phase of life you're in.
Sure. I am currently on day 6, so I kind of started syncing up more with leading closer to the full moon, which is like a bit different for me. Usually a new moon. And it's been interesting. Yeah, so anyway, I'm in my follicular phase in the archetype, like just the start of the maiden energy.
Hmm. Do you like that phase, or is it like some women feel really good in that phase and then other women are like more comfortable in like the luteal sorceress energy? Do you have like one that feels better for you?
Yeah, and it's shifted as I've gotten older. And now I'm just look forward so much to my luteal phase. I actually feel fine, like I feel good, but um for whatever reason, like as I've gotten older, that phase I've just gotten so much more comfortable in. Maybe because I'm like more getting closer to that phase in my larger life cycle. So I'm
Mhm.
41, and so I feel kind of the whispers of the sorceress. So it kind of like matches up a little bit of with that life phase, and I just feel a lot of strength
Mm,
and a lot of like physical energy. And I've been really focusing a lot on exercise in the past 4 months or so. I mean, I have for like many years, but I've
yeah.
kind of taken it to another level with
Mm,
strength training lately.
mm.
And and that I just find that luteal phase just to be like kind of more like kick ass, you know?
Yeah, totally.
It's like really fun. Uh, but the maiden is cool. And like today I put on this very maideny kind of colored thing, and I kind of reflected upon that. Like, what am I gonna wear to my podcast interview? And I don't know, I just grabbed this and I was like, oh yeah, this is so maiden energy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm in right now. So I appreciate every phase. I think because of the depth of connection that I have to each archetype, I know that each one offers me something really special. But of course, we have our favorites at different phases, right?
Totally. Yeah, I love hearing that. And the kimono is totally like maiden energy. I love it. And that's one thing I love that you taught in the school too, is like really fully embodying each archetype while you're with them, like dressing for them and like getting, knowing what activities they like to do and what they like to eat and like specifically what they like to wear is so fun for me. I feel like my maiden archetype always wants to wear pink or like, something like that. And then when I get to like sorceress, it's like I basically wear black for like a week.
Yeah, totally. It's so cool. It's so fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's so
women
fun.
are amazing and it's just magic, right? That's really cool.
Yeah, and I love hearing too, like kind of how, yeah, you've gotten more comfortable and embodied in that like luteal sorceress energy because like you're moving towards that in your larger life cycle. I think that phase of the cycle is really interesting to me because I really love my maiden phase right now. It's been so fun for me, and I'm also in that phase of life, so it makes sense. Um, But I feel like in the luteal phase, it's almost like I drop deeper into my core self, and that feels really grounding. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, like all the ideas and things that aren't really me that were more like societal constructs that I was following. Like in the luteal phase, it's very like that's gone. It's just me. Like
Yep.
you were saying, that kick-ass energy, it's totally that, and it's kind of awesome.
It is. It strips you, right? Like the
Yeah.
season of autumn, the leaves shed, and what are you left with? And that's like for a lot of women, that can be really frightening, Natalie. So like it's really cool that as a younger person, you're already like getting really comfortable with dropping into that core essence, you know?
Yeah, thanks.
Love-
I think to be honest, it's kind of new. I when we were in the school, I remember it was a really hard phase for me and I would often, I think I even shared this in some of our calls, I would often feel like my life was like wrong in that phase of the cycle. I would feel like everything needs to change. Like my entire life needs to change. I need to like leave my house and move and do something totally different. And that used to really scare me. And I thought that I just needed to sort of like soothe that voice. But it turns out I did need to change my life. And then I changed my life, and I'm so much more comfortable in that phase. And it's just like that's the gift of it, is like she has so much to share with you about like being in alignment. And when you are, I think it can be a more easeful phase.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were sharing a little bit about how you're feeling the like sort of almost shift into the sorceress energy. I know, I mean, you're a little young to be like fully in that, but I would love to hear more about like your current life phase and what you're feeling and what your larger life cycle is like right now.
Yeah, so it's a little complex maybe because, well, maybe we'll get into the story later. I don't know, but I'm happy
Hmm.
to like, touch on it now as well. But I recently lost a baby 6.5 months ago, like at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
Um, And so in a lot of ways, I'm like postpartum, you
Yeah.
know? But it's weird because I don't have the baby. And I have three Earthside children. One is 16, almost 17. One's 6, and one's 4.5. And I'm in a really interesting phase of life. I don't know. I feel kind of like that energy you just spoke to, of like I'm ready for things to change. You
Yeah.
know, when you were getting those messages, I'm feeling that too. Like something is wanting to up level. Um,
Mm.
some of it is naturally already happening, I think, you know, and I'm just in a little bit of that butterfly process where you're kind of gooey and you're like, like
Yeah.
you know, and obviously like that is very postpartum, right? And
Yeah.
you come out on the other side a new woman, and that first year is pretty freaking monumental.
Hmm.
I think if you have your baby or not, but like if you don't have your baby, it's just a whole other journey. So that's very kind of micro, and then like more macro. I'm not yet in perimenopause. I still have really regular cycles
Yeah.
every 29 days, and they're pretty healthy. I'm still building my blood back since my birth, my last birth. So
Mhm.
they're a little shorter than I'd like them to be. This is like my very like analytical,
Oh,
right?
I mean, it's great. There's space for
Well,
all of it.
yeah. But I'm fine. Like I'm doing well. You know what I mean? And I know that I'm going to be fertile for a number of years to come.
Yeah.
Also in a really interesting period of a big, huge question mark of am I going to have another child or not?
Yeah.
And like if I am, it's for sure going to be my last. Now I said that with Lilah, which is my
Yeah.
daughter's name who I lost. Um, so you know, had she been here, like I really do feel like that would have been my last.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is quite yet because it's a conversation between two people. It's also my partner. And
Hmm.
we're riding but like different wavelengths right now, which is also fine. You know, we're communicating about it and like giving the space that's needed.
Yeah.
But that's a weird place to be, Natalie, and like the sort of quote end of your fertile years. And again, like I could be fertile up till I'm 50. Like I don't really know. But I don't want to have a baby when I'm 50.
I get that.
No, you know? And God bless the women who do. Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Like it's just not what I want.
Yeah.
So I personally feel like this kind of I don't really like the word urgency, but kind of
Mm.
a like, okay, the portal is open and you are probably going to want to close it in the next year or so. So like find your yes or find your no.
Yeah.
That is such a weird
Whoa.
I don't know if you've ever talked about this on the podcast, but it's, and I actually like didn't really think we would go here, but actually this is kind of a big
Yeah,
conversation.
I don't think I've had this conversation on the podcast.
Yeah. And a lot of women can struggle with this of like, how do you know that you're done
Yeah.
having kids?
Yeah.
And what I've personally landed on that feels good for me is it's not a no until it's a no.
Mm.
And so for me, the door is just cracked open. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if that baby will come. Um, I have to keep like tuning into guidance every day and like having the conversations with my partner. I don't want it to come from a heady place either.
Totally.
I feel like if you come at that from a heady place, you just never have kids.
Yeah, I think Kristen mentioned that to me or on Instagram or in the school, something I heard from her where she was like, you're never ready for motherhood. Like if like people say like, "Oh, you need to be absolutely sure you want to be a mother." And she's like, "No, like what? That would be crazy."
Like if you really think it through all the way to the end, you're probably going to be like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, you know?
Yeah.
And you know what, Natalie? It doesn't really change that much even after you've had babies. I mean, okay,
Um,
speaking for myself, like
okay.
you know, and I just experienced loss. So it's a little bit more complex for me, but
Yeah.
it's like that kind of like butterflies in the stomach, even if you're like, well, of course I want, even if I were to want to have 10 kids and I would just keep saying yes. I
Hmm.
just find it's playing with something really, really, really big, you know,
Yeah.
conception energy is huge.
Yeah.
It's God force, you know? And so, hello, like you can't encapsulate that and get your mind to understand it. So for me, it's
Totally.
very kind of sensual
Mm,
slash spiritual process. And I'm
yeah.
really, really in that right now. And again, if
Mm,
that baby's going to come or not, I really can't say for sure right now. But I feel close to some kind of portal. And I feel with all of my babies that they've always kind of wanted me to like up level something or like I felt on this brink of change or I don't know, maybe in certain pregnancies, it's been like a lot of shadow work, you know? Others, it's been
mm,
like way more cosmic. And so I feel whatever this energy is, what it's bringing me is closer to joy
mm.
and an expression of kind of unhindered joy, which
Wow.
is really nice because I've been in such a deep grief process, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Of course.
And it's not like every day, but there's been these moments kind of these openings. And I really do feel that that's some kind of gift
Mm.
from some spirit baby, actually. That's kind of what I feel. So that
Oh,
like, yeah, there's a lot kind of moving, right, in my life because
yeah.
I'm in this process of saying goodbye to my daughter who I just lost, or like not just not really saying goodbye, but more like, oh, we're something else entirely. And what is this new relationship?
Mm.
What does cosmic motherhood look like, right?
Wow. Yeah.
At the same time, I'm mothering these two little boys who are just insanely energetic.
Didn't you say that your community has like a name for your two little boys?
Yeah, they call them the Vikings.
It's so fun.
Both vikingos, because we live in Mexico, and
Yeah.
they're these blonde, super bright blonde haired, but they're like tough and they eat like liver for breakfast, you know, and like more eggs than I do, you know?
And it's like, I'm sure that's just like such a different energy than like the cosmic motherhood of like the energy you've described, Lilah, which is this very like
Oh, totally.
feminine, like,
So different. That's so,
yeah.
so different. And then I have my eldest who's 16, going to be 17 in a couple of months. And she's actually transitioning out of my house soon
Mm,
because so she's from a previous marriage and her dad lives in Europe. And so she's going to be going to Europe to spend her last 2 years of high school.
wow.
So I'm saying goodbye to both daughters.
Mm,
And so that's
oh,
super deep and really
yeah.
beautiful. And then at the same, so it's weird because, you know, to have children from a previous marriage and then to have this big age gap. So Violet's 10 years older than my middle son or my second born, my oldest son. And it's like two batches of kids kind of, you know? So you're like processing almost that kind of empty nest kind of feeling, but
Yeah.
of course your nest is very full with these other vibrant beings still,
Yeah.
but losing the female energy, like it's just going to be me.
Mm,
I don't know. That's been a
yeah.
huge process. I have felt like occasional what I've just kind of going back to the cyclical phase,
Hmm.
larger life cycle. I have felt occasional glimpses into like, oh my God, is this perimenopause?
Mm.
Actually have had a couple of what I would think would be hot flashes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I actually think it's been related to my postpartum.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I haven't been through menopause yet in this life to
Yeah.
know this is exactly what a hot flash feels like, but I've
Yeah.
heard it described to me as energy moving up from the womb and then kind of up. And
Hmm.
it actually felt a bit different than that. And so I think
Hmm.
that it's kind of been more me finding my regulation. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm guessing it's just a really different process when you lose the baby. Because, you know, okay, I gave birth when I was 41. And so I'm like, is this just what a postpartum feels like at 41? Or is it because I don't have a
Oh,
baby? Because
yeah.
sweating like I have never sweat before. And I just feel like there was just this, I was trying to regulate, you know, but the baby's not here with all of these hormones to the baby helps all these other hormones to keep moving,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. It's been like weird cyclically, but
Hmm.
I'm just kind of honestly calling in like still some really good fertile energy. Even if I don't end up having another child, I just feel like I'm going to be fertile for a lot longer. And I feel
Yeah.
actually stronger in my body, I think, than I've ever felt in certain.
Wow.
Yeah, like I've been focusing a lot on strength training and I don't know, I'm kind of getting this like interesting, I almost feel like slightly addicted now to
Okay,
work.
I can actually really relate. I like honestly the same sort of time frame as you. Like I would say the past like 4 months, maybe closer to 6. I've been doing strength training, like going to the gym and like lifting weights. And I was really healthy. Like I've been really healthy with like my food and like I did a lot of yoga and walking and hiking and but this like my sleep has always been good, but like this strength training piece is new. And I've been telling people I'm like this is like the biggest difference. Like I feel like I was like medium level vibrancy. And lately I'm telling all my friends, like, I feel like a fertile goddess. Like, I feel so vibrant. I feel so strong. And I think it's the strength training.
Absolutely. It really is. It's such a
Yeah.
piece that I think is missing for a lot of women, and it's really important.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found that. And gosh, I mean, like just hearing you talk about your life phase, it's like there's so much different energy like moving through you, like that you're being
Yeah.
asked to be this vessel for like so many different energies. And even with the heat, I'm almost like, I had Rebecca Cohen on well, it hasn't been published yet. Maybe it will be by the time this is, but she was talking about hot flashes because she's been having hot flashes. And she was telling me that Sister Morningstar told her to like, that they're not bad, that they're like a surge of energy that's like for you. It's like almost like how we tell birthing women the contractions, like the sensations are like, your life energy. And she's like, this heat is like this energy. It's like gifting you energy. And so, it just brought that up for me with your story because there's just like so much energy with like your daughter moving out and losing another daughter and saying goodbye to two daughters and then being with your sons and then this like new joy that's entering in maybe with this new soul and it's just like so much energy that like you're being asked to move through you and like do something with which yeah I can imagine is like exciting and maybe a little overwhelming.
For sure. And thank you for like recognizing that because sometimes it's not until you kind of have a mirror or have a conversation
Yeah.
about like, here are all the things that I'm actually holding right now. And you're going like, oh, that's a hell of a lot. Um,
Yeah.
that's for sure been overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I have been actively working on my nervous system since losing my daughter because I just got into like a whole different state of activation there with her
Yeah.
death. And there have been some times where, yeah, it's definitely shown in my life with that kind of sense of overwhelm. So I'm really trying to be really mindful of that and to dive a little bit deeper into the nervous system component, which I'm really excited about. I feel like that's going to be this kind of up leveling as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like you said, like these beings come in and they ask you to up level in a certain way, and like their specific lessons are so perfect for exactly what you need, which, yeah, I'm
Mm,
so like, I don't know. It's just so wonderful that you're able to tune into that and receive that guidance.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear about your first bleed. I like to switch gears and kind of start there. I think it's really, like it's, I guess in a way, like when you yourself are born, that's like kind of a blood mystery, but I really like to start with menarche because that's yeah, like your entrance into womanhood. And I think that the imprints from menarche really tend to show up through our other blood mysteries. So yeah, I'm curious how that was for you.
Yeah, so I got my period pretty late. I mean, okay, in comparison to everyone else,
Mhm.
right? So I just remember everybody else seemingly having breasts and like having already, the pad or the tampon in their bag for like a year or more. And I was just like, when is this ever going to happen to me? And
Oh,
I was just like thin and kind of, I don't know. I think there was something slightly awkward about me. I mean, I'm sure like everybody feels like that at that age, right?
of course, we're all awkward.
Yeah. But I just remember being like, I want to bleed. I want to go through that? Am I ever gonna, is it gonna happen to me? Like it just felt so exciting somehow.
Yeah.
And while I never really ever fully, I mean, not fully, but I mean, okay, I never became a big-breasted woman, okay?
Same. Maybe when I have kids, I will, but so far, not
Yeah,
happened.
they do get a little, it's nice. They get a little bigger. And yes, they work perfectly well to feed my children. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, that I was just never that type of woman. But I do remember the moment of getting hips
Oh,
and
wow.
like literally like poking at them in the mirror and being like, Mom, come look at this.
It's so cute.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's like a thing. It like won't go in anymore. And she's like, oh, honey, like those are your hips.
So
It was,
cute.
I know, that's actually really cute. That was before I actually started bleeding, but I think
Yeah.
I started noticing the changes and she was like, yeah, you're becoming a young woman. And I was like, oh, she's like, yeah, those aren't gonna go away. Like
Like these are
you're
yours
gonna,
now.
yeah, they're probably gonna get a little wider. And that's a good thing. That my mom was always just really sweet about my body. And just, my mom she was really good about just saying, if you need anything, let me know. Like if you want
Mm.
to know about something, let me know. If you ever get to the point where you feel like you're ready to have sex, let me know. She
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
like
Yeah.
shameful about stuff
Yeah.
like that, or trying to put any shame on me, which was pretty, I would say back then in the area that I grew up in, which is very Christian, and I was Christian, and like I really was like, I'm gonna wait till I'm married to have sex. I actually thought which is really sweet. But
That's sweet.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. But it was a big deal, I would say, that a mom was saying that, she
Wow.
was,
Yeah.
and I really do, I still just so appreciate that about my mom. I remember she said something like, when the urge comes, it comes really strongly. And like
Mm.
sometimes you don't feel super prepared. So if you get to that place, just let me know. So I did always feel
Wow.
comfortable talking to her about my body because she kind of had the openness about her. So
Well, and I
yeah,
think it's also like it's really cool the way she said that. Like when the urge comes, it comes really strong because it's like that's giving you this like blueprint so that when you feel that, you don't feel caught off guard, which I think is a really tough feeling that a lot of women experience in puberty and menarche is like feeling caught off guard. And so to have that like awareness and know that like you have this safe person to like share that experience with, like that's pretty monumental, like you said.
it really is. It really
Yeah.
is. And yeah, so eventually I got my bleed. I was in a class. I think what's interesting is my mom has like a different memory of it. Because when
Oh.
I started teaching in the blood mystery school, I was like, I gotta know, like, I want to really know the details of my first bleed. Because I had done the menarche reclamation, but sometimes you
Mhm.
get like different pieces. What
Yeah.
I remember though is that I got like a kind of a brown spot in my
Mhm.
underwear when I was in the middle of like gymnastics class. So
Mm.
at one point I was a cheerleader. Uh yeah,
I
I've
can kind of see that.
oh that's funny. Most people can't. I have led a lot of lives in this one. Okay.
Yeah.
One of them was like a cheerleader in Texas.
No, stop. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So funny. I actually hate American football and I never knew what was going on, but I like the cheerleading aspect.
But I mean, cheerleading, I feel like there's kind of like, a girls group and there's like, I don't know. But I think like girls sports are cool for that reason.
I think that was kind of what I was drawn to, like the girls'
Yeah.
circle energy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I would take this kind of gymnastics tumbling class once a week, and I remember going to the bathroom and finding this spot of blood in my underwear, and then
Mm.
being like, "This isn't it, right?" Because it was kind of brownish,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Which just kind of like happens a lot for
It
the first
happens a
one.
lot, yeah. But people don't really prepare you for that, so you're like, "Wait,
No.
is this it?" Oh, but I remember just kind of feeling like this giddy excitement. And then the next day, which I think is the piece that my mom remembers, is that like the actual blood came in the
Mhm.
bathroom. I don't remember like a whole lot of details around if we did something special or if she took me out to eat, maybe. What I do remember though, and this is like the main piece I think that I've walked with through my other blood mysteries, is I felt a certain sense of magic with my first bleed. Leading up to it, especially like, oh, this anticipation, this excitement, this I can't wait to be a part of this club,
Yeah.
even though people weren't necessarily talking about the club in a good way, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like back then in the 90s or whatever in Southeast Texas, people were like, it's so cool to bleed, you know? Right. And so I don't know where I got that from, but I think that it was just this inherent knowing,
Yeah.
my womb's wisdom already starting to talk to me of like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is magic, you know?
Yeah, like part of your soul's blueprint.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything to mirror that back to me in the culture at large. Even my mom, while she was great, like she was great, but I don't know. I don't remember anybody being like, yay, like this means this, and this is meeting your power, like the way that I now explain it to young girls, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, it's sort of like, okay, then you just kind of keep going and you kind of learn how to use the tampon or the pad or whatever. I mean, there was no awareness around the toxicity of tampons or like you can use other thing instead, or you should rest when you're bleeding. You know, I do remember like already at that age starting to get premenstrual headaches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like that's been one of my weakest links kind of in my journey with my cycle, and I've actually been able to get to the root of them with really good supplementation of magnesium.
Nice.
Yeah, but like also a lot of spiritual work, you know, because I feel like there was something dropping in for me at around the age, because I got my period like I think right at 14, and then around the age of 15, I remember having one of those kind of like feelings right before I bled and premenstrual headache. And I also ate like shit back then. I mean, I was,
And that's what I was gonna say. Like a lot of us have these early cycle. I was just reflecting on that with someone yesterday. I was like, man, I don't think I even like knew like protein. Like it was just like fully carb diet.
oh my God. Natalie, I at one point I was like, I'm gonna become a vegetarian. And so at that point, I was eating a turkey sandwich on white bread with Lay's potato chips, you know? And so instead of like trying to replace the protein, I just took out the turkey. And I just
Yeah.
had like a white bread with cheese and a bag of potato chips.
Oh my God. Like
Yeah.
we just had no idea. Yeah. And I feel like, the 90s too, it was like such like a low fat, high carb diet
Totally.
phase. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously nutrition was not on point, but like what came with my bleed, and I wouldn't say like immediately, but I would say within maybe that year, what came with it for sure was more of me landing in my body.
Mhm.
And I started to wake up. I started to
Mhm.
question the hell out of everything. And I was
Wow.
just, what are we really doing here? What really is this life? Why am I even in school? Like, do I really like to do this? Am I actually going to go to university? Do I care about this test? Like, and I was
Whoa.
a good girl, like straight A, cheerleader, president of my class. I mean, I was like that
Wow.
up until then, right? And 15, things started to shift and it got kind of rocky between my mom and I think because yeah, I was just like, what the fuck is this? You know? But I didn't have
Yeah.
the language
Yeah.
for any of it the way that I do now. So I have a lot of compassion for that young girl with those premenstrual headaches, which I feel like were also a part of my body kind of rebelling against certain.
Mm.
Like I just remember being in this gym class when I was feeling that headache and just feeling like I just don't want to be here. I want to go home and lay down. But I
Yeah.
never rested. I never gave myself that opportunity. I was just like this activity and that activity and after school and I was in theater and then journalism and it's just go, 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 go.
Yeah, those years are like that.
Yeah, and I just feel like that was the wisdom of my body already trying to be like, you can also take a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't have anybody to reflect back any of that.
Well,
Um,
right. And like that's the important thing. It's like you teach that in the Blood Mystery School too, that like that's like the most important thing for the coming of age girls to have like someone who's like solidly holding the line and like able to reflect back and like even when their daughter is like needing to differentiate to be able to like have space and not get triggered by that. And but I also like wow, the fact that you were questioning all this stuff at 15, like that's like not a very common story.
no, I guess it's not.
Yeah, that's like a really uniquely Nancy thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. And then the questioning continued from there, and it's still going, Natalie.
Well, I sometimes feel like the older I get and the more embodied I get in like my cycle, because the cycle is just like this constant medicine journey.
Mhm.
It's like the less tolerance I have for things that aren't me.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that was just like coming online for you at like a really young age.
I kind of think so. And again, I didn't have the quite the language for it,
Yeah.
but I was just like, I am moving out of here as soon as I possibly can. That
Yeah.
was what I was. I was like, this isn't for me anymore, this area of the world. I'm moving to New York City, and I thought I was going to be a famous actress. And yeah, there was like all this funny kind of stuff around it. But
Yeah.
there was some kind of drive inside of
Mhm.
me to explore outside of the confines that I was in.
Yeah.
There was nothing like wrong with them. I grew up in my parents are nice people. Like I wasn't like abused as a kid. And
Yeah.
well, I went to a public school. It was like pretty normal, but I had like some pretty awesome programs as well. You know what I mean? I had a
Yeah.
pretty good life, but there
Yeah.
was something inside of me that was like, okay, but then what's next? Like, this isn't it, you
Mm.
know, isn't all it is.
So where
So
did you go from there? Like what?
I moved to New York.
You did it. You did move to
Yeah,
New York.
I did. I mean, I graduated high school
Yeah.
and I my birthday's in June, so I turned 18. I graduated at 17 and turned 18 in June, and I
Mhm.
left right after that. I think I was
Wow.
gone by July. Um, yeah, I had a
That's
friend.
awesome.
It actually is pretty crazy. I had a friend who was in theater with me, and we both got a partial scholarship to a theater school in New York. I ended up
Mhm.
taking a different route. That's like another story, but whatever. It was kind of the thing that got me there, right? And her
Yeah.
mom was like, I'll go there with you guys and like set you up in an apartment and
Mm.
get you going. And so I took a year off of school and just worked because New York is so expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh my God. I had no idea what I was getting myself in. Wow. I mean, I was like this, wow, really this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like Texan girl driving to New York
But that's
City.
also like that's that maiden energy that's like naive courage that like actually gets you to make moves, which is so important too.
Yep, absolutely. And I talk about that in the school, and
Yeah.
I don't like to shit talk the maiden for
Yeah.
that because a lot of stuff has come out like around the maiden, like, oh, the maiden is so whatever. I'm like, dude, the maiden is so epic. Are
I
you kidding?
know.
Do the same moves now,
I
I'm
know.
I'm so much more calculated and like a little bit cautious because I know some shit. You
Especially those early maiden years. Like I'm still in my maiden years at 28. I feel like still a little
know?
bit in that. I feel shiftings, but I think about like my early 20s and like the things I did and I'm like, "Oh my God, I would never do that."
But how
It's
cool
important.
that we did that. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing that now in my daughter and those budding things. And sometimes she tells me things because we're pretty close.
Yeah.
She prefaces with, don't freak out. You can't freak out. I'm gonna tell you. I'm like,
You're like,
okay.
"All right."
Oh,
Nervous system work come in.
yeah, yeah. Because, she's opening up to me and she's exploring some things. And she does have a really good head on her shoulders. So
Yeah.
usually the things she tells me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's just like normal maiden stuff.
Yeah.
But
Cute.
it's kind of it's interesting to hold space for it when you know,
Hmm.
God, they're kind of bound to just fuck up a bit, but that's
Yeah.
also like what it's about, you
Yeah.
know? You fall
Yeah.
down a number of times and yeah, you do things, like I thought I was going to be an actress, but
Mm.
actually life took a totally different turn, but I'm still so grateful for that naivete that just pushed me out there because New
Yeah.
York made me grow up and I
Mm.
learned so much about how to just kind of survive in this matrix.
Yeah.
What was appropriate for me at that age.
How long were you there? Like, what was that time? What were you doing? Like, what, yeah, like how long were you there? And then what was your relationship to like your body and your cycle and spirituality while you were there?
Okay, that's a big question. I was there for 6 years. So I get there and then 9/11 happens,
Oh,
literally like
wow.
2 months later. And so my,
Whoa.
my my poor parents, I mean, they did not want me to move. And they
Yeah.
were like, okay, now are you gonna come home? And I was like, no,
Yeah.
like it didn't change anything for me. But it was kind of a weird, scary moment. That was a
Of
huge
course. Wow. That's so
moment
big.
living in New York. And I was working on the up, you could like smell smoke where I was working.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. So anyway, gosh, so much transformation happened in those years. I ended up
Mhm.
going to school, but not studying acting. I actually ended up studying religion.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, which I think I've always been a very spiritual person. Even I grew up Christian, and so there was a Christian in the southeast of Texas. So yeah, there was just like a kind of mm, religion is like a little bit in a box there,
Hmm.
or like spirituality or relationship with Christ, because like now I have a totally different relationship with Christ. Um,
Hmm.
but back then, I would still, even as a kid, I would contemplate like really heavy and deep things like the idea of karma or the idea
Mm.
of justice, and this was at a very young age. And I would stand in front of the mirror and be like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I?
Whoa.
So I was always kind of a seeker. And
Yeah.
so that all followed me. And then when I got to New York, I took a class called mysticism. And
Oh.
it completely changed my life. And I was like, whatever this is it. Like, this is what I've been seeking out. And so uh, I'm kind of jumping around here, but
That's
I
fine.
want to say that in high school, I was straight edge, which means you don't drink, you don't smoke. Okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't having sex. I was like actually kind of creating my identity around that as well, because
Mm, interesting. Yeah.
everybody else there was drinking, and I just
Yeah.
didn't find it to be interesting at all. But then when
Mm.
I moved to New York, I did go through my phase of drinking and
Okay.
partying because I had like suppressed it.
Yeah, we all go through it at some point.
Yeah, it's like, oh God. So there was a year from like 19 to mid 20 or something that
Hmm.
was like a bit reckless. And then in that mysticism class, I kind of woke up and I was like, oh, whatever this professor is describing is what I've been seeking out through alcohol,
Mm, whoa.
state of being. I think we read that book, The Doors of Perception, and some other stuff. We studied Sufism. I don't know. I just wanted to get in the inside of like all the mystical things. And then I went around New York City and like tried to get into all these different, like I spoke to somebody who is in Islam and he was trying to convert me, but I was just there for the interview, and then
Yeah.
Orthodox. And then I was just like so interested in learning
So
about
cool.
all these different belief systems. And I wanted to find the thread that connected them all.
Hmm.
And then like, I'll be honest with you, I ate mushrooms and that
Yeah.
was that was it. That was it. Like I ate mushrooms and I was like, oh my God, we are
Yeah.
one thing. And I had this I had this world map on my wall.
Yeah.
We're looking at it being like, we're one. There's no actual borders.
Yeah.
It's a weird made up thing that we do down here. oh my God, like this is one consciousness that expresses itself through these individual bodies. I got that in that first mushroom experience,
That's
which
amazing.
wasn't even very strong, but like it was strong enough. And
Yeah.
then that was it for me. It was like, okay, I don't really need alcohol. Um, there is various stories in there, but like eventually I got around to like, that's not really that interesting to me anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
My connection with my body, funny enough, it was through veganism that I kind of got more connected to my body.
Same.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it goes for a lot of us. Like we grow
Yeah.
up on a shitty standard diet. I don't know how
Yeah.
you did, but I did.
Oh yeah.
Standard diet, like a lot of junk food. Um, and then when I got to New York, I started gaining weight because I just kept eating that way, and like eventually it caught up with me. And then I
Mm.
was, oh, this is like kind of, I don't feel good. And a friend of mine said, what would happen if you just stopped drinking soda? And oh, can you do that? That's like a thing. Like, well, yeah, let's just try it for a little bit, you know? And I was like, oh, okay. And then I did. I felt so much better and I started losing
Wow.
weight. And then I met a guy who was vegan and I was like, oh, this is so interesting and cool.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want to harm animals and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
what was ultimately, I, of course, dropped veganism because I think it's a diet that leads to depletion. But
Hmm.
I had to learn that the hard way. But
Yeah.
there were those years at the beginning where it connected me to my body more because I
Hmm.
started to just simply pay really close attention to what I was putting into my body.
Yeah.
And I started to learn how to cook and enjoy that process. And like when you're vegan, you're kind of a little bit challenged to make things taste familiar or like interesting, you know? So I was doing like, interesting combinations of things and slowly kind of getting more, I guess, embodied in certain ways. And then I met my first husband and we were together. We kind of fell in love really quickly,
Mm.
and he moved back to Sweden. I actually met him at the very end of his trip to New York. He was just visiting
Whoa.
his sister for like 3 months.
Uh,
Yeah, and then we kept in touch over the phone for months, and then I went there to visit him, and I got pregnant.
whoa. How old were
Yeah,
you?
I was 24, 23 when I got pregnant,
Okay.
24 when I birthed her. No,
Yeah.
24. Sorry, I'm like, because I got pregnant in July, so I just turned 24.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And, you know, I wasn't doing fertility awareness method. I was not aware of that. I was
Yeah.
using condoms, and it was like, the one time, and you trust the pull-out method, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Were you ever on like birth control or anything, or you were just
Oh,
like,
okay. Let's talk about that. So,
okay.
my mom, yeah, this is like, yeah, a topic that's up for me now, like raising a teen,
Mhm. Totally.
Obviously, birth control fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want my daughter to get on that. But I did grow up with a mom who I was saying was like really open, and she always told me, if you want to get on birth control, let me know. So there
Right.
was no talk around it's harmful
Mm.
or there's other ways to do it, mostly because the education wasn't there, I think. But
Yeah.
I never did because I actually just wasn't having sex until I
Right.
went to New York. And then it was with this vegan boyfriend who said, funny enough, the freaking vegan boyfriend, right? He's like, you should get on birth control.
Like, okay. It's like a
So,
recipe for great fertility, birth control, and veganism. Like,
oh my God. And I was like, oh, okay, because I was just using condoms up until that point. And he was like, well, think about it. Like, then we don't have to use condoms.
oh my God, so annoying.
I know. And I just did not have the education around it.
Yeah.
I was, I think, 21 maybe at that point.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I was on birth control for all of 1 week, Natalie, because I wanted to throw myself off of a balcony. I was so miserable. I was depressed. It was literally a week, maybe max two. I was completely just crazy. I felt like an insane person. Just I felt so full of rage and like
Yeah.
I didn't recognize myself. And I kind of had like some suicidal stuff come up
Wow.
in a very short time. Uh,
It's interesting you bring that up because a lot of women I have on the podcast were on birth control for a long time. And it's like an interesting part of my story that I'm like you. I was on it a little longer. I was on it for 3 months, but the same thing. I felt it wasn't like any physical thing that it did to me, but like my emotional regulation was out the window. Like I was so angry. I was so like manic. And
yeah.
it was just like you said, it was just like, this is not me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I started to kind of process it with him, and I'm like, the only thing that's changed is the birth control. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, so I
Yeah.
got off. I know. I'm so glad. Oh my God.
Right.
I just look back on that time and I think, God, I had some angels watching over me, or like, wow, my higher self is strong because I
Yeah.
could have easily pushed through that,
Oh
got
yeah, most people
some
do.
other kind of dose or whatever, something, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was just something in me that's like, nope, I'm not doing this. And
Yeah.
so that lasted all of like a week or maybe two. I don't really remember, but it was very short-lived. So actually I just relied on condoms.
Yeah.
Then I until I didn't, and then I got pregnant. Um, and it appears that I'm very fertile. It appears that my family, my mother line is. My mom warned me about that as a young person. Like, so, like we seem to get pregnant really easily. So, uh, fair enough. I was warned, but that was Violet, and I'm so glad she's here with me. And so
Yeah.
obviously that was a huge shift. And the next blood mysteries, I guess, that we can touch on is Violet's birth. Or I
Yeah.
don't know where you want to take it, because I mean there's so much more I could say about my New York days, but I don't know how interesting that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear what you want to share about like your first initiation from maiden to mother. Like that's really interesting to me, especially because yeah, it was like a bit unexpected. And
Yeah,
yeah.
very unexpected. Shocking because I had just gotten to know this guy. Like we
Yeah.
were in love, we really were, but God, I mean, we were like just getting started,
Yeah.
and it freaked him out for
Oh.
sure. He kind of became, I think he had like a freeze state come over him for like a
Okay.
solid 3 days. He was just kind of like deer in the
Whoa.
headlights.
Yeah.
But I have to say, with all of my babies, even the ones that weren't like planned in that moment, when you see, because I did take a pregnancy test, when you see those two lines, and I cannot speak for every woman feeling like this because I know it's not
Yeah.
like that, but for me, it's just always been really exciting.
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is my baby. I love this baby. Like just immediate love and excitement. And then later comes the like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? And I,
Yeah.
I called my mom, and it was so crazy because my brother had his wife had just given birth to twins and
Mm.
came early. And I called my mom, and she said, "Oh my God, did you know? How did you know to call me? Did you know that the twins were born?" And I was like, "What? Oh my
Whoa.
God." They were born quite early, like 2 months or premature. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, well, I'm pregnant." And it just,
Big day for your mom.
yeah, huge day for my mom because that was her initiation into being a grandmother. Like
Yeah. Wow.
the day the twins were born, and then me finding out about Violet. And she was so
Wow.
sweet because I was completely freaked out. And she was like, "You know what? You're 24. That is the perfect time to have a kid."
Hmm.
I know. Because I felt very young,
Well,
and
in our culture today, like that is like younger than most, but in the
yeah,
scheme of things, it's like really not.
I know. It's like
Yeah.
when my mom had kids.
Yeah.
She's like, and I think she told me that, like, that's when I had you, or I can't remember. Yeah, I think she had me at 24, and my
Mm.
brother, which was 22 or something. So, she's like, "It's great. You're young. Like, it's great." And then my dad, and I was like, "Oh, cool." Like, I don't know. It was just such a cool, reassuring response. And then
Yeah.
my dad asked my partner at the time, "Are you ready to put on your big boy britches?"
The
It's just
Texas dad thing to say if I've ever heard one.
bad thing to say. So it was funny. They were like sweet about it. Of course, they were worried about us because I was in New York. I was studying, I was waiting tables, I was working as a nanny. I had like multiple jobs and was studying. And the freaking dad of my baby lived across seas, right? So obviously, there was a lot to work out. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. I really feel like when babies come in, things get worked out and things
Yeah.
sorted and life rearranges itself around that and you just figure it out. Because I've heard so many stories of this and I have moved in like almost every pregnancy, you know, and this was a huge move because I moved from New York City to the tiniest town in Sweden in the middle of
Wow.
winter. And God, it was just a massive change. But yeah, the thing that I want to speak to is for some reason, and I have no idea why, I knew I wanted to free birth. And like,
Whoa.
yeah, and I did not end up free birthing. You'll hear the story, but I did not even know free birth was a thing. But I just, because like Free Birth Society wasn't out back then, you know,
Uh,
but I started Googling home birth because I knew I didn't want to be in a hospital. I've always hated hospitals. Like even as a
mm,
kid, they totally freaked
mm,
me. I just did not like the vibe of those places. Um, so I was like, I can't imagine giving birth in a hospital. That seems really weird, but like I was not educated at birth about birth at all. So I just
mm.
started Googling home birth and I came across the work of, I think her name's Laura Kaplan, Shannon Capri.
Yeah. Laura Kaplan Shanley, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who
She wrote
wrote
Undisturbed or no, Unassisted Birth.
Unassisted Birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like the OG, like one of the
Yeah.
OG free birthers, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And then I like called, Sandro is his name, my ex-husband. I'm like, come look at this. Like women give birth without anybody there. And he was like, cool. We were both so like such edge walkers. I mean,
Yeah.
we were like really into even, back then. This is 17 years ago. I was
Whoa.
super into conspiracy theories. The quotes around them because I think a lot of this stuff was true. But like
For sure.
we were like diving into all these documentaries just about like waking up and like what is this place actually and what is really going on and who's actually ruling the world and what are their motives. And so we started to become awake to like the bullshit of the world. So I think
Yeah,
maybe what kind of led us to like questioning birth as well. It was like, well,
for sure.
that's not true or not what we thought. Then what is this? Like
Yeah.
if
You
this,
get like you're one in and then everything opens up.
uh-huh, right. And so we were like, whoa, people do this. So we bought the book, Unassisted Birth, and we thought we were going to do that. And then I got freaked out like 6 months in, and I was like, I think I need to hire a midwife and I don't know. And he was so sweet because at that point in my life, I was playing music and I was like performing in small bands and like small
Mm.
festivals and stuff. So he was like, it's
Whoa.
just like a show. Like sometimes you get really nervous when you have your guitar and you're about to sing, but you always just do it. It's going to be the same with birth. Like he was so sweet and I kind of believe you, but I don't know. I think I need a woman there.
Mm.
So unfortunately, I didn't listen to him because that would have been really cool. But I'll
Yeah,
make this story short because I think there's like way more ground to cover with you still. And this is
for
just
sure.
the first initiation though, right, into motherhood was pretty pretty tough because it started out as this amazing birth. I had these two midwives at our house, but the way it works in Sweden is that who they only work in the hospital and then like 1% of the time they go to a home birth, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're like the most alternative ones of that unit in the hospital. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm trying to paint the picture. Like
Now I
think
get it.
midwives, but like serious midwives,
Yeah. Yeah. Hospital
They're
midwives,
just,
different vibe.
yeah, they're just bringing the hospital into your home
Yeah.
because they work in that day in and day out.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what they did. I labored
Mhm.
totally fine. It was a pretty long birth. It was like 16 hours in total, but I felt like really good up until the
Yeah.
last maybe 5 hours. And then I started to get fearful, and the paintings in my room started to melt, like literally. And it was kind of like that feeling of like, oh my God, did I just take mushrooms or what's happening?
Whoa.
Uh-huh. And I hadn't done a whole lot of ceremonial work in the way that I have now. And so I didn't have a lot of experience with that particular passage of like, yeah, this is just your ego letting go. Just
Or
go
like
with
anyone to hold that space and reverence
it.
for you.
Totally. Yeah. And all they were doing was poking around at my cervix, being
Oh
like,
my God.
do you have the need to push yet? Because I was
Oh my
supposedly 9.5 centimeters open.
God. I'm
I
rolling my
know now
eyes.
that that's like a bunch of bullshit, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I feel. Like I'm totally like melting, you know?
Yeah, you're like, I am in a completely different realm of existence.
Right. And they were like, trying to just pathologize everything. And so ultimately, they wanted me to transfer to the hospital. As soon as I got out into the garden, about to walk to the ambulance, is when I started to get the urge to push. And
Mm.
like, if I would have been the embodied woman that I am now, in that moment, I just would have been like, okay, she's coming. We're just staying here.
Yeah.
But I was just like super defeated and I was like in a victim place. And so I got into the ambulance. I got into the hospital and in the elevator, I was trying to tell them the head is right here. I'm going to give birth to her. And sure enough, she was crowning.
Whoa.
So I get into the hospital. They still like shove Pitocin in my arm. And they're like, your uterus is really tired. Just a bunch of crap, you know. But again, I just didn't have the level of education I do now. And so I just, went along with this. And eventually Violet was born very quickly, actually, within the hour of getting to the hospital. So I was able to have
Wow.
a vaginal birth. I did have the Pitocin.
Yeah.
At one point, she was like, I'm gonna cut you. Like she was gonna give me an episiotomy just
What?
for like no reason. Thank God I just said no. I just yelled out no.
Yeah.
So that was great. I did end up tearing a little bit. It's the only birth that I tore with. And so, anyway, she came out, and she was just so gorgeous and like
Mhm.
perfect. And this huge baby. Well, okay, she was like almost 9 pounds. She felt really huge.
Mhm.
Um, but I was freaking devastated. I was just like so bummed that I was in the hospital.
Yeah, of
I
course.
and at that point in my life, I was kind of one of those, I was vegan as well. I was
Oh my gosh.
vegan. And I was one of those kind of righteous, kind of young people who like think that they have a lot of things already figured out. And so you just have to tell everybody about it. So I was
Yeah.
telling everybody in my pregnancy that I was going to have a home birth and that this was the best way and blah, blah, blah. I didn't like guard that as a treasure in my heart, to share with a select few. I spent a month in Texas with my family and they were just convincing me that I was like putting my baby in danger. So there was a lot of fear programming happening during my pregnancy.
Yeah.
But ultimately that first blood mist or like that second blood mystery, so the birth slash postpartum, kind of like initiated me into what I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, there's a whole world of crazy stuff around birth that I just didn't know about. And I want to,
Wow.
and so it's what made me become a doula. It also plunged me into the depths of shadow work
Mm.
around my self-worth
Wow.
because I was completely basing my worth on things that were external to me when I was a maiden, And so it was like, okay, we got to work on that. And that was many years. Oh my God, after her birth. I just felt really defeated by that birth.
Mhm.
It was so important to me to not birth in the hospital. So I had to dig
Yeah, it's
just
also like it makes sense, like the feeling of defeated because that's your blood mystery and these blood mysteries are your opportunities to like come into your power and have your power reflected back to you. So when the opposite happens, it's like, whoa, like where do I go from here?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So it was rough. Like those first few years of motherhood with Violet were really tough. We were pretty isolated out in Sweden. Thankfully, I had a great partner. He's a wonderful person and a wonderful dad, and we, even though we're not together anymore, we get along so well. And so I did have his support, which was amazing, but we were just like young, trying to figure it out, kind of broke and like adventurous though, adventurous as hell. We went backpacking with Violet when she was 6 months old through Central America.
You told me that once. I think
First,
you were like, I was changing cloth diapers in a hostel.
yeah, I was straight up like washing cloth diapers in the sink hostel. So
Wow.
I mean, I was tough, but I didn't know anything about postpartum. And so I was not harnessing that golden opportunity. I was up on my feet the next day going to the grocery store
Whoa.
because not even because my partner wouldn't go. I mean, he was like, I'll just go, but I was like, no, I want to come. Like, I just had no
No idea.
idea.
Yeah.
And I was eating a bunch of vegan food, a bunch of soy-based stuff. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had to deal with all that later.
Yeah. So when did you stop the veganism?
I stopped it when Violet, because she started to have really bad tooth decay at a young age,
Mhm.
and it like didn't make sense to us because we
Yeah.
didn't need any processed stuff really. We didn't
Yeah.
allow to have candy, so we were like, what is this coming from? So I did a kind of deep dive into the Weston Price
Right.
Foundation. Found like, oh, it's a fat soluble vitamins, and she didn't have that in the womb, and that's when her teeth developed. And oh my God, we totally fucked up. Like, let's
Mhm.
go 180. And so we started. Actually, it was Sandro, her dad, who started with like one day. He was like, I'm going to the store to get eggs. I'm going to make pancakes with actual eggs in them today. And I was like, okay, that actually sounds good. And then, yeah. And then we're like, oh, this is so good. And we actually felt like full for the first time.
Oh, wow. It's
Oh
so
my
funny.
God. I remember the amount of food we would make and just eat so much and still not be satisfied.
Yeah, so much volume. I remember that too. Like giant plates of things.
Rice with lentils. Anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
it's quite delicious, but
Yeah, it's just not like everything that you need.
right. And so then we made friends with a farmer who gave us raw milk. He was
Whoa.
really funny. He had this big belly and he kind of hung out of his window because we were trying to get him directly. And he's like,
Yeah.
what do you want? And we're like, well, we want to get raw milk. And he's like, I don't think I can do that. And I was like, well, what do you drink? And he was like, well, raw milk, of course. That's all I drink. And I'm like, you drink it straight from the cow, right? And he goes, well, yeah. And I was like, how much? He's like a couple of liters a day. And I'm like, how are your teeth? And he's like, I don't have a single hole in my teeth. And he was like in his late 60s.
Wow.
I was like, boom, exactly. Can you give me some? Because I'm trying to heal my daughter's teeth. And he's like, oh, okay. Just slip the coins on the step and take it from the vat and don't say anything.
That's amazing.
I know. So
Oh,
we kind of went down that journey and we started with the milk and the eggs and then we did the wild meat and some fish and yeah.
yeah. Wow. So that's like kind of you coming into this more embodied, like in your health
Yeah,
state.
like recognizing, oh, this isn't all here. There's
Yeah.
also a very physiological component, and my body needs certain things,
Yeah.
and so does my
Yeah.
daughter's. And once you
Yeah.
have another person on the line, you're like, oh, dang, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I need to rethink this. And of course, it was very confronting and very disappointing that I hadn't figured it all out and that I wasn't right after having told the whole world about being vegan,
Oh
right?
yeah, we all did it.
Yeah.
I remember I used to give my dad so much shit. I was like, "Dad, you eat steak and potatoes way too much. Like that is not a good meal." Like blah blah. And now I'm like, steak and
Yeah.
potatoes, solid meal, Dad.
Oh my God. So yeah, that was like the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to whatever you want to share about this, like because a lot happens between your first pregnancy and your second two children. So maybe like bridge the gap a little for me.
That was 10 years of a gap. Oh my God, so many amazing shifts. I do feel like I need to weave this in here because it is a big part of who I am.
Mhm.
I do start to get into ceremonial work, plant medicine work when Violet was 2.
Yeah.
Primarily ayahuasca. And that has shaped who I am. And I have a
Yeah.
lot to say about that too, in terms of hormonal health and like, I don't know, maybe we can dig into that. But
That's interesting.
yeah, I mean, yeah, Kristen and I are like, we need to like talk about this more, right? Because so many people are getting into plant medicine now,
Yeah.
um, which can be depleting, you know.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
I'll, you have to be very mindful. And I wasn't really at that age. You know,
Yeah.
when you're in your 20s, you're just like blowing through your reserves, you know,
Oh, yeah.
like staying up late and doing ceremony, doing whatever you want. Because I was still so much in my maiden energy, even though I was technically a mother.
Yeah.
I just had so much living to do. I was like, I'm going to travel to all these countries. I'm going to try plant medicine. I want to know like what's really going on here. I'm going to dig into like every single conspiracy theory I could possibly find. Um, and I was just a seeker to the
Yeah.
max, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but like the blessing of that is that that whole plant medicine journey like really informed my next chapter and ultimately led me to meeting my now husband. And we've been together for, I think it's 11 years now, or maybe 12. I think it's 12 years now. We're coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, could that be right? Anyway, I don't know. We met in the beginning of 2013. Is
Wow.
that a
Yeah,
big
that's
deal?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, is it really
That's
always
12 years. Yeah.
so, you know, at some point there was like the breakup and the dissolution. I feel like I don't really need to go into all that because it's not
Yeah,
like
that's fine.
you just I'm so grateful to my previous partner because he's just like a brother to me now, you know?
Hmm.
I'm so thankful we can be on the same page with how we raise our daughter and how we co-parent,
Yeah.
even though we're like miles apart.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, so ultimately that kind of ended. We did like a ceremony to kind of like let each other go. I
Hmm.
eventually was led to travel to Mexico, to Guatemala and Mexico. I started to hear a voice actually speak to me. And now I do believe that that voice was the voice of my second born. So his name's Elijah.
Oh,
He's 6 now. Um, and I really do believe that was his voice. And so he's
whoa.
guiding me to meet my now husband and his dad. And we met in a ceremony. Like that story in and of itself is just crazy magic, but it's super long. So gonna make it short for now.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just wow, like just fast, 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 fast. Like you're you know, I'm hearing this voice, and this voice is like, this is your spiritual partner and father of your next child. And I'm like, wait, what?
Whoa.
Are you
You're
kidding
like,
me? And he was like, I don't even want to have kids, you know?
whoa.
It was funny because he was like, well, I might have a kid if I could know if I knew she could be like your daughter. Because he loved her
Oh.
from the minute he met her. So that was like a whole journey of like him opening up his heart to have kids. But I really feel like that was Elijah speaking to me, guiding my steps. And it was just this crazy initiation into trusting my heart because I had no money. I was, I mean, everything about my life. And it was right on that Saturn return when I met him, like 28, 29.
Yeah.
Everything in my life was just dissolving. Like no partnership. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know how I was going to make money. I was selling chocolate balls on the beach while I was
I remember you
backpacking.
saying that.
Yeah, crazy. Like selling chocolate balls, I would make, I don't know, 100, 200 pesos a day, which is like five to 10 bucks. No, no,
Literally living in the moment.
yeah, I was like, yay, tacos for the day. Or like, I'll go buy some eggs and like make some, you know. Doors were opening, things were working out. It was
Yeah.
crazy. It was an amazing heart guided time and the voice of Elijah coming in.
Mm.
So eventually we get together. Funny enough, it was actually him who was like, why don't we do the fertility awareness method?
Whoa, really?
Yeah, which is so crazy because he was like, well, are you on any kind of birth control or like, do you have an IUD? And I'm like, nope, nope. And he's like, okay, well, do you want to try this other thing? And I was like, yeah, sure. And
So
like,
that's when you started that.
yeah, and I had kind of
Oh,
heard like some things about it, but I had never really fully studied it. So we
yeah.
got the book, you know, the Bible
Yeah.
of that. I
Yeah.
whatever the name of that book is.
Taking charge of your fertility.
That's right. Yeah, thank you. It's like super thick.
It
Highly
is like a
recommend
Bible.
getting started with
Yeah.
fast. Um, we dove into that. We like dove into tantra and like how to move sexual energy. He was studying that at in the school, a yoga school, kind of by where we met.
Wow.
So anyway, we eventually go on to conceive Elijah 4 years later after we met. And that
Mm.
was like a very conscious conception, very much guided by him and just this
Wow.
constant dialogue with his spirit. And
Wow.
I knew he gave me his name. I knew his soul's colors. I knew we had been like, if you believe in past lives, like I felt like we had been in Egypt together and he was my
Wow.
teacher at one point. Like there were just all these different threads that I was kind of working with. And
Wow.
I knew I wanted to do things really differently. And by that point, was already a doula. I had attended a number of births. I had studied a little bit postpartum. I knew about the closing of the bone ceremony.
Mm.
I did a closing of the bones before I got pregnant because I wanted to like really fully close that chapter with Violet, even though it
Yeah.
was like 10 years later, but I had never
Yeah.
done the closing of the bones. I never did a proper postpartum with her. So I was just like wrapping up that chapter to welcome in another that was much more powerful. I found the Free Birth Society podcast. I started just devouring those stories.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and at first I was like, oh, maybe I'll hire a midwife here. We moved in my pregnancy to where we live now, and I just started to kind of interview all the midwives to kind of get to know the landscape. And I even interviewed a doctor,
Oh,
um,
wow.
which is so weird. Like now that I look back, I'm like, why did I do that? But
That's funny.
it's kind of weird. But there was a part of me that was just like, I want to know everything that's going on here in this
Yeah.
place, to birth. And because I had that previous experience of home birth to transfer, there was this little doubt in my
Mm.
mind, like, what if that were to happen again?
Mm.
What would I do and who would I be with?
Yeah.
Oh my God, the interview with that doctor was just horrid. I like walked out of there and I was just like saging myself, like, ew, why did I ever sit down with that guy? It was so gross.
Oh God, I can only imagine.
So basically, I hired my midwife so that I could get paperwork done. But I told
Okay.
Brandon, I'm gonna free birth this baby. Like, I don't want to. And he's like, okay. And he had some questions and he was a little like, oh, what does that mean? So I was like, you know what? I don't want to be the doula right now. I just want to be the pregnant woman. So we took
Mhm.
a class together that was like a prenatal preparation class with an incredible woman who is my dear friend now. She's just like this amazing wise elder. And she
Oh.
does these really cool, like very kind of spiritual classes as well, where she talks about kind of the landscape of labor. And there's only like a couple of true emergencies, and here's how you would recognize them. And so
Mm.
once he had that, he was like, oh, I feel good about this. So
Good. Yeah.
we went on to have just an amazing family-centered birth. It was just Violet, my daughter filming,
Oh,
which is so cute. It's like such
so
funny
cute.
and him and myself and then my friend who she and I had been doulas together at births before she
Mm.
came and she was there for the birth but she also supported me postpartum. So that
Mm.
was just an incredible, it was under 2 hours. It was
Whoa.
really straightforward. Like, I don't know, it was just awesome. I was using my sounds. um God, there's so much for me to talk about with you. It's ridiculous. Like
I
once
know.
I didn't even talk about how, like, at some point I become a sound healer in the landscape of my life, right? Um,
Yes, of course.
I went from like musician, kind of like singer-songwriter to then eventually becoming a sound healer. Anyway, I still currently do that work.
Mm.
So I'm very connected to sound and like I have a very open throat chakra. And so once I was able to just like understand how to use that in birth, I like open my jaw and really let the sounds come out, which is something I did
Mm.
not do with Violet. I was very quiet for her birth.
Mm.
Um,
And that's so connected to like the opening of your pelvis too, of course. And so, yeah, wow.
so then I was able to just let him come out, and he was strong. He is such a strong spirit. Oh my God. Like, that kid is crazy. He is like a obviously, I think he's a genius. Like, I know, okay, we like to talk a lot about our kids and like we're biased, but he has so much power. He has so much energy. He has so much intellect and so much
Wow.
power as well. He's very mighty. And he came
Mm.
out like just this, yeah, the pushing phase was very different with birthing a boy versus birthing my daughter.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like a freaking like freight train, you know? So that was the only part of the labor I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I just stood up and birthed him.
Wow.
And it was great. And we had an amazing postpartum and then
Yeah, you got to really like take care of yourself in your
yeah,
postpartum.
I
And
actually like did the 40-day stay-in and the closing of the bones and the nourishing food and the all the things. It was amazing. And then 9 months later, I get pregnant with Owen. And I actually,
whoa.
yeah,
Okay.
Um, so I thought that Owen was Lilah. So Lilah is
Mm.
the, to go back to that, she's the baby that I just had. Because we had a spirit we had a spirit baby come to us that was a girl. We even got her name. And then we were like, okay, we want you to come, but like, let's wait a little bit. And actually, Owen was a surprise. Um,
Wow.
he came, I had one cycle postpartum. And so I was like like I was kind of doing the fam, but I was like, well, I think it was like on day 6 or 7 that I conceived, like really early.
Wow.
And I normally just would not have been fertile yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So Owen
He was
came.
just like coming through.
Oh my, it was like such a funny baby surprise. And just, we totally thought he was a girl the whole time. Everybody did. He made me go back into a lot of shadow work in a kind of a
Okay.
different way, like more in like a lineage way, kind of more in
Hmm.
like I don't really quite understand this with my mind, but like I'm just
Hmm.
at really shadowy territory. It was a crazy pregnancy because we were also building our house that we're living in now. So I move into our house at 38 weeks pregnant,
Oh my God.
which is insane. My contractor was like, God, I wish you could just give me another month, And I was like,
You're like, I cannot.
moving into that place, or I'm like moving in way later because I'm not going to move in my postpartum.
No. Yeah.
And Brandon was like, we're getting in there no matter what. We did not have rails on our stairwell. We did not have a freaking front door. Like we had a front door with cardboard. I'm not
No. Oh my God.
It was crazy, but we're like, we're getting in this house. So I get in this house and there's still like construction going on. I give birth to Owen at 42 weeks. So that's kind of interesting about my blood mysteries. It's like there was no common. I gave birth to Violet right at 40 weeks. Elijah was like 39 weeks, and then Owen was 42.
Hmm. That's
Um,
interesting.
somehow expected to follow some kind of trend. And then Lilah, I gave birth to at 27 weeks.
Yeah.
So
That's very different.
like really weird. But also like, I don't know, that happens. I think that's kind of important to mention because some women think like, oh, my first was born at 40, so my second will be too. But no, honey, you need to I remember like texting Emily Saldea from Free Birth Society, and I was like, oh, I'm still pregnant. And I was like, just 40 weeks. And she was like, sweet, you need to just prepare to be pregnant for at least another 3 weeks. Just mentally that. And I wanted to punch her through the phone so
Yeah,
bad.
of course.
I was like so done already. So he made me, but she was freaking right. He made me wait
Yeah.
till 2 more weeks. And then he came in 45 minutes.
Whoa. I didn't know
Peter.
that.
No. It was crazy. My friend had gifted me like a sourdough bread he had just made, and I was making French toast with that bread. And then 45 minutes later, there's a baby in my arms. I was, I think I need to go upstairs. I was making the toast, like, I don't know. I think I'm feeling something, but I kind of thought I was going into labor a number of other times. So I was like, whatever, I'm probably not. This baby's never gonna come. And then finally I was like, Brandon, like, do all the rituals because
All the rituals right away.
yeah, we had planned like all these things, and
Of
it
course. I'd be the same way.
was born in the bathtub, which was really cool because it's like my
Hmm.
most treasured place in my whole house.
Hmm.
Um, it's just a beautiful, like goddess kind of egg-shaped cool dome area.
Mm.
And it was really, again, it's just really straightforward. And he shocked the heck out of us being a boy.
So did you like had you connected with like this boy's spirit or like he was just a total like who is this person?
I mean, again, I thought I just kind of I had kind of projected Lilah onto him.
Yeah.
I connected with his spirit in the way that he showed up, and it
Mm.
is very similar to who he is. I felt
Yeah.
him very sensitive and like
Mm.
much more subtle. I felt like a lot of greens, like deep forest greens with him.
Mm.
His name ended up being Owen, which took us some weeks to get. And that name is Celtic in its original like origin. You spell it a bit
Yeah.
differently, but it means born of the yew tree. And the
Ooh.
yew is the tree that like can supposedly technically live forever because its branches become its roots.
Mm.
And it goes like that. So he has that vibe. So I
Yeah.
picked up on his spirit in pregnancy. I just sort of assumed he was the girl, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. He's still a bit of a little mystery to me, but he's the most like me of all my children, I would say.
Mm.
Both really highly sensitive. Um,
Yeah.
he's very audio, like I think he's musically talented. Okay, he's only 4.5, so I'm like just starting to know, but he's really, really, really sensitive to sound. And he's
Mm.
very good with like keeping a rhythm. He's kind of like the little shaman in the family, I would say.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
So
what's postpartum like then?
amazing, dreamy, like, my postpartums with my boys were just like the best days of my life, honestly.
Ugh. So
Just,
it should.
like, I cannot stress that enough. For me, it's like, okay, every blood mystery is so important, right? Because it's that
Mhm.
input. But wow, the 40 days postpartum, that is something so magical. And you have such an opportunity to imprint yourself in the best of ways and to come out on the other side stronger, to come out on the
Yeah.
other side more resourced, more embodied, wise. And I have every postpartum, you know?
Wow.
I mean, with the first one, I kind of missed that with Violet, but
Yeah.
wow, with the boys, they were just these incredibly dreamy, just very restful, amazing days of bonding, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. It just reminds me, like, obviously, I haven't had a postpartum, but I, like, when I think about how I take care of myself on my bleeds, which has just gotten like more and more intentional over the years, like, just how I like enter into my follicular phase with such robust, refreshed, renewed energy. I'm like, I can't even imagine what that's like for postpartum when it's that just like amplified tenfolds.
Yeah. And it's so cool because you're practicing every time you do that. You're practicing for that period. And
Yeah.
it's just incredible. Yeah. So many gifts inside of those 6 weeks.
Yeah, gosh. So who do you become after this postpartum? Like, where does that lead you?
I mean, raising the boys back to back has been a crazy initiation. Oh my God. And then I built the school, the Blood Mystery School, when Owen was
Yeah.
a year and a half, I think. And, at first I thought it was going to be something small, like, oh, just like a little course on the archetypes that, I could sell for a couple of $100, kind of a thing, like just a self-study. And then I was like, no, this needs to be a little bit bigger. What if I were to invite Kristen? Like, I really need her amazing knowledge to complement this more energetic spiritual side. And then Emily was like, what if it goes bigger? Like,
Yeah.
it becomes kind of more of a teacher training as well. And I was like, hold up. Like, this is intense. I have these two boys back to back. I'm tandem nursing them. And then I'm like building this sport or this school, it was a huge initiation. But
Wow.
that's what each kid does. I feel like they bring just a lot of energy, and sometimes they bring more financial abundance or like
Yeah.
abundance in different ways, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to take a leap and this is going to require a lot of me. Thankfully, I have a lot of help and support here in Mexico, um, in the way of like an incredible woman who helps me with nannying or like cooking and
Mhm.
cleaning, whatever I need, she's kind of
Yeah,
like
that's amazing.
my mom or whatever. So I,
Mm.
leaned on my support, and and just it was tough. It required a lot of me, and I needed to really be mindful about minerals and nutrition to really read
Mm,
because that's not a very long time in between pregnancies for your body
yeah.
to really, but thankfully I was like eating that more ancestral diet and like really mindful about that stuff. So I was able
Yeah.
to recover eventually. I was able to keep my second son alive because that was like our main focus was like keeping him alive because his older brother wanted to kill him. Like two boys back to back. A lot of like intense energy and they get jealous,
It's like such
Somebody,
big energy.
somebody else coming to drink mommy's milk, what the heck is
Oh my.
that? Yeah, so whew, that was an intense period of our lives and like moving into our house, which is an amazing house, but we had like no furniture. So just slowly kind of building our lives here
Yeah.
where we are, and becoming ceremony
Yeah.
leaders. We started doing every 6 weeks these family-friendly gatherings where we drink cacao and have a sacred fire and we honor the wheel of the year. We started working with our elders more like closely and I mean, yeah, we just built so much in those years.
Yeah.
A lot of building energy.
And how did you come to the point where you decided to conceive again then?
It wasn't, unfortunately, it wasn't conscious.
Mm.
It's kind of ridiculous, but we felt another one, and we
Yeah.
were really on the fence, both of us, like, and it was kind of one of those things where we were like really starting to find our groove with the boys and our community and our work and like, do we really want to rock the boat? But we definitely felt the presence and we just weren't really fully saying yes yet. So
Yeah.
this is such a like there is like a little element of shame around this piece of my story and I really don't know why, but I think it's because I've felt her so strongly spiritually and I really just have like a regret of not saying a full yes to her. Because I honestly question, Natalie, if things would have turned out differently. And like, of course, we'll never know. And it's so
Yeah.
kind of silly, but this is like where you go when you're a lost mom. You go into all those crevices of like, how could I have prevented this? Um, but we used a product that's actually because we were doing FAM, but
Hmm.
we got news of this product that's a natural spermicide. So you
Okay.
inside of you as the woman. And it's totally natural and it's basically just supposed to cut the tails off of the sperm. Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And like, I would not use a product like this normally, but it came highly recommended through someone I really trusted. And
Mm.
she's like, we've been using this for years. It's so cool because like you can do fam, but you can still like make love and like not really worry during that most fertile period where it's like so fun to make love.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, it sat in our drawer for months because we were like terrified to actually use it,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. And we read and reread the paper a number of times about how to use it and it said in there, 2 in 1,000 women can get pregnant using this product, which makes it, those statistics make it as good as a condom, supposedly.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, like, are we ever going to actually use this? And so one night we said, let's just try it. I was on day 10 of my cycle. I know exactly the date. It was a crazy night. Like I should have just known. I was so aligned. I was so open. Like every energy center was open. I
Wow.
felt spirits in the room. Like I felt like beings were like interested in what we were doing. It was a very beautiful, like passionate night, to the point where my husband was like, whoa, like I haven't
What's
seen
this?
like a side like this in a while, and it was like, whoa, I don't even know. It was just totally cosmic.
Uh,
And she came with that,
wow.
which I wonder about because I don't know. I've processed this a lot with Kristen, and we're kind of like, it doesn't make sense because like technically you shouldn't be able to conceive if the tail is missing from a sperm. But
Yeah.
I do wonder if it was like just barely damaged enough to
Mm.
cause some kind of genetic issue, but
Hmm.
like still to conceive, you know?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So we conceived that night. I didn't consciously know, but something inside me knew, I think. And then a few nights later, I actually had a dream where I woke up in the middle of the night out and I said out loud, I shot up in bed because it was such a disturbing dream. And I said out loud, the embryo is damaged.
Oh my gosh. I remember you sharing this with me at Matriarch Rising this summer, that dream. That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy part of my story. And
Whoa.
so he said, what do you mean? Because we're sleeping. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know. That was just a weird dream because I didn't think, because I didn't know I was pregnant. And like, we weren't actively to.
Oh yeah, you don't even know you were pregnant yet. That's a big caveat.
Hey. And I find out I'm pregnant a couple of weeks later when I missed my period. And
Mm,
the first thing I thought of was the dream.
mm,
And I'm like, oh my God, this is just rocking my world. What do I do with this information? Because I have psychic abilities and I have prophetic dreams, you
yeah.
know? And I remember processing it a little bit with Emily from Free Birth, and she was like, like women have weird dreams all the time. Like, what are you really gonna do anyway? Like, is anything gonna change? And I'm like, no, like I'm nothing. She's like, no, like everything's fine. And that honestly was probably the perfect thing to say to me at that time because she was right. Like, what was it actually gonna change for me?
Yeah. Like what would you do differently? And nothing. So like,
I didn't feel like doing anything differently. So I
yeah.
was just like, okay. So then one night my husband and I, it was our anniversary, and we did a little ceremony together. And I just kept having this dream come up, and I was like, I just don't know what to do with this information. And he was like, okay, let's pray. Like that's what we know how to pray. Let's pray. So
Yeah.
we went outside and we lit this special candle that we got when we did this pilgrimage with our elders. And it's kind of a candle of like when you really need a strong prayer, you light that, right? And
Mhm.
so we let it burn all the way down that night. We got all our feathers out and like all of our stuff. We had this Virgin Mary statue, which is now where my daughter's buried.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it was like a power place. And we said a prayer and we said a really strong prayer, which was like, if you are healthy and strong, we can't wait to meet. Like we really want to welcome you into our family. And like if there is something going on with your body that is going to make it to where you're not compatible fully with life somehow, we are going to trust that my body will let you go. And that was like a really hard thing to say,
Yeah.
but it really was my ultimate truth and his too,
Yeah.
because we were like, we have really strong missions here. We're like leaders in our community. I'm doing all this work with women. Like we hold a lot of space. And we
Yeah.
have these two Vikings and this amazing teen. Like
Hmm.
it's a lot of energy that we already are working with. Like we didn't feel that as a family we had the karma of having like a sick baby or like super high needs, like what
Yeah.
that would need medical care around the clock. Like we don't even operate inside of the medical system. It's
Yeah.
totally outside of our life, you know? So we were just kind of processing all this and saying this prayer of like, please, this is it. Like if this is meant to keep going, like God, we're so excited to meet you. But like if not, we trust, right? Now, when I said that prayer, I totally assumed that I would have a miscarriage, like in the first
Right.
trimester.
Yeah.
This prayer was said around like week 10. But I didn't. I kept going. I felt great for the most part. Like first trimester always kind of sucks, but
Yeah.
after I got through that, I was like, wow, I feel great. Like better than I had felt in any of my pregnancies, actually, which is kind of
Mm,
interesting. I felt really cosmically connected to her. I did feel that it was a she. I never did any kind of testing with any of my kids to find out their sex. So it was just always a surprise, but I really felt it was she. I was like, this has got to be Lilah. I felt like these amazing like purple pink kind of colors and like this cosmic kind of ocean feel,
wow.
like a lot of vast energy. So I just went on, with life. And I, of course, I like returned to that dream frequently because
Yeah.
yeah, it was like unsettling, I
Hmm.
just kept asking myself, am I going to do anything different with this information? And the answer just kept being no. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Some test that then, like, what is that going to tell you? And then what
Yeah.
are you going to do? Like, not like you're going to have an abortion or something. Like, you're just going to birth your baby, Like,
Yeah. Well, it's
it.
such it's such a challenging place to sit in where it's like you want to know, but the information wouldn't do anything different. So like, can you sit in the unknown? It's like
Exactly.
such an interesting kind of like weird, uncomfortable. Yeah.
For sure. And that for me is womb wisdom as
Yeah.
well. That ability or that like capacity or that desire to just be okay sometimes with the mystery, you
Yeah.
know? So ultimately I just kept going. I went to Matriarch Rising, as you know, because you were there and we were even working together and
Uh,
Natalie let us lead a beautiful ceremony that we did there. And it was amazing. I had an incredible time. I felt so good.
yeah.
Um, I just was like, this is so just beautiful. I felt Lila's energy just shining through me and
Totally.
just felt a lot of radiance and a lot of health.
Yeah.
I was like feeling some things that were kind of weird. One of them being that I felt like very wet all the time.
Hmm.
Looking back, I think that I was leaking fluid already,
Mm.
but I didn't realize it because it was so slight that it just appeared to be like vaginal fluid, which is totally
Yeah.
normal in pregnancy.
Yeah.
I was also sweating. It was hot at
So
matriarch
hot.
rising, and I came from like the dry semi-desert to the heat, like
The
humid heat.
humidity.
So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just yeah. And like Chris and I were talking about it, and I'm like, it's probably girl. Like I'm totally just feeling like juicy, you know? Um, yeah, which so it was like a lot of innocent, like whatever, nothing really out of the normal. But I think looking back now that I know the story, I think it was fluid. So
Mm.
I go to Texas right after that because I was trying to take advantage of being in the US to visit my parents.
Mm.
Spend a couple of days with them. And then the day that I went into labor is the day that my boys and my husband arrived to meet me. So they were staying behind in Mexico while I was at the festival. They gave me a couple of days with my parents alone, and then they show up. And then that day is when I realize I'm leaking fluid, like in a big way. Like there was like some small gushes coming here and there.
Yeah.
And I think I just got into such a state of shock and denial that I just was like, nope, this isn't happening. Or like, I'm totally going to heal from this. My bag of waters can reseal. I don't know. Like, I
Yeah.
just did not jump into any kind of emergency mode at all.
Yeah.
Um, Literally, the kids had just gotten there. I was trying to get them acclimated with my parents, and I rested. I was like, I just need to stay off my feet. I need to take some magnesium and some vitamin C. And like, I was just doing all the things that I know to do.
Yeah.
And that night, everybody goes to bed, and I start to feel like a little crampy. And I'm like, no, no, this is not happening. Like, I was in just such a state of denial, which
Yeah.
I think was protective, actually,
Yeah.
even though it really is so hard to look back on it. Because I'm like,
Mm.
hello, did you not see that? And then I and then I go to the bathroom and I'm like, oh, I think I just need to poop. And it
Mhm.
was actually her head.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah. And you know, I gave birth to Owen in 45 minutes. So like I
Yeah.
and Elijah was an hour and 45. So
Yeah.
I'm a fast birther.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just like, still, I couldn't believe it. I put my hand inside and I was like, oh, that's a head. And then I was just like, nope. This isn't happening. I'm gonna go to bed. Like, I don't
Well,
know
it's
what.
like out of your like awareness of what's possible, right? And so it's like not within the context of what you could even imagine would be possible. So of course there's denial.
Yeah, I'm literally in my parents' home, traveling, 6 months pregnant, like three
Yeah.
months before I'm supposed to be giving birth. Like, what the heck? This was just, yeah, not on my radar of like, this is going to happen to me.
Yeah.
So Brandon comes into the bathroom and he's like, babe, you need to like realize, like, I can't remember what he said. It's like, this is happening. Um, you need to surrender. I know that you know how to do that.
Mhm.
And he did ask me at some point, like, are you okay with it being here? Like, are you okay being here and not going anywhere? Because I'm doing the math in my head. My parents are like 30 minutes from a hospital. Um, they live kind of out in the country and it's like
Yeah.
11 at night. And I'm like, yeah, I just nothing inside of me jumped up to go to the hospital
Yeah.
or to make this an emergency. And I just, in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, this is my birth. And I'm gonna claim what I wanted for this birth. And I wanted a lot of pleasure. And so I
Yeah.
started to sing that mantra by Alexis Sunshine Rose, which is I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I don't know why, but that one came to me.
Yeah.
And we sang that at the festival, and I just repeated it softly and as she was coming out, and that was it. I just birthed her, and it was like so easy. So,
Wow.
so, so easy. There was no pain at all. It was just really straightforward, except that it was way too early. And I
Yeah.
knew like that babies of that gestation don't survive
Yeah.
without a bunch of tech, without a bunch of intervention. And um, I don't know. I was just really, really, really present with her and with my husband. And she wasn't, she had a pulse. So
Mm.
she wasn't fully gone yet, but she was not in any way, shape, or form like trying to really be here. You know, she
Yeah.
wasn't trying to breathe. She wasn't opening her eyes. And I have
Yeah.
like read stories later that even at that gestation, babies can come out crying, even though they
Wow.
later require a lot of help, they can come out with an expression of life.
Yeah.
Looking back, I see it all clearly. Like I was leaking the fluid, her movements had slowed down tremendously. That should have been a red flag for me, but I was just, I don't know, I just trust life. I just trust birth. I
Hmm.
trust my body and, I trusted my prayer. And
Yeah.
so I don't know, I was just kind of in that space of like, no, it's fine. Like she probably just moved positions and like everything's fine. Cause I did still feel the movements occasionally. Um, and so yeah, my husband and I were just like looking at each other, trying to process this and yeah, she died in my arms, like my hands a couple of moments after that. And I mean, I knew she was gonna die. Like I looked at him and I was like, she is going to die. Like, are we okay with it? Like, is there anything else we want to do? And I think we both just felt so rooted in our prayer that we
Mm.
were like, no, this is just how it is. And oh my God, that has been so hard. Later, like in the moment, though, there was such presence and
Yeah.
such reverence and such trust. And we were just talking to her and telling her how much we loved her. And I mean, I did at one point like say, like, if you really want to be here, like call all of your essence into you and show me something, but she was not trying to be here really. And so, um, yeah, she passed away. It was insane. Like, I don't know. It was just like the craziest thing I've ever had to walk through. Now because I don't want to like, I feel like I don't need to go into like so many more details about, because it was just a really, really, really simple birth. Her placenta came like really fast after that.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
was, but
just the way you describe the presence and the just like being with the process, it's like that's a representation of like how you live your life. And like of course there's going to be, which I'm sure you're going to share, like the integration is probably the biggest like heady part of it, but like being in the experience and in the moment and like knowing that like this was just the experience. I just, yeah, God, it's like the whole thing of like grief isn't wrong, death isn't wrong, and it doesn't mean it's not hard, but like to be present to it and to be present to that experience with your full heart and to, yeah, just be there in honor. When you said like we had that thought, like, should we do anything? It's
yeah.
just like, well, you are like you're just being
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And it's right. And no, bone in either of our bodies was moved to do anything else. And had it been, we would have, you know,
Yeah.
and that's something
Yeah.
that the two of us have processed at length over and over as these different waves have come, especially for me. He actually has never wavered, my husband. He's been like a solid rock, and he's like,
Mm.
we did what was right. Like we actually, we, you birthed and sat with death in the way, exactly what you just spoke to, like in the way that you live and in the way that we live. And we said a really strong prayer and we actually trusted the prayer. Like there was something going on with that pregnancy, Nancy. We don't know what it was. We don't know if it was her. We don't know if it was the placenta, if it was something with your body. We don't know. And we'll never have those answers. But like, there
Yeah.
was something, and we were told in a dream from the very beginning. So, like, what was there to really do but what we did, you know? Because if we would have done anything else, it would have completely gone against everything that we, I don't know, stand for. Sounds kind of weird because I'm not trying to like, I'm birthing. Like,
Yeah. Well, what's
they're
true for you?
exactly, yeah. So, that, I mean, for sure of all the freaking blood mysteries initiations, this one has been the biggest. Um, it's been so hard. It's been like the hardest thing I've ever walked through in my life. And I feel like I've been giving back shame and guilt for the entire collective to the Great Mother to be transformed. And I know that that sounds like maybe really like dramatic or
No.
but it actually just feels like what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, I work with women. Like this is my part of my huge part of my work and my life's path is to support women throughout every single phase of the female continuum. And so it does make sense to me that in my life's path, I would also be a person to experience something like this and to be able to then later hold that space for people. So there has been a deep trust and the deepest part of my being. And then the layers on top of that is the societal programming, is whatever like mental thing of just like the natural kind of bargaining part of grief where you go
Yeah.
back and you're like, oh my God, I could have done this or I should have done that. Or what if I would have done that? Would she have been? And was it something? I mean, and it's just the questions are endless. And so
Mm.
you never get anywhere. Never get anywhere with them. It's really interesting, but your mind will just go until it goes. And then
Yeah.
you turn back and you return back to presence and you return back to your heart, return back to your body. And like, this is where we are. This is what we're dealing with. This is a postpartum without a baby. Okay.
Mm.
What does that look like? And I wrote a piece that I really liked that I did post on Instagram, so you can find it there at Nancy Lucina. But ultimately, like what I've come to understand about Lilah and me is that we are something different altogether. Like there are so many women around me that are having babies right now and that gave birth right around my due date. And for a long time, there was the feeling of like they should, my baby should be here
Mm.
with these other babies. These babies should be growing up together. I should be. And then I stopped doing that. I stopped doing the shoulds. And I really began to tune into like what she and I are. And I'm like, we're something different altogether. We are not mother baby dyad on the physical earth plane, but we
Mm.
are still mother baby in a very cosmic way. And you
Mm.
don't stop mothering and daughtering even when they're beyond the veil. Like you don't. And anybody who's lost a baby knows this. You just have to mother them in a different way. And
Mm.
don't, and it's almost an sometimes I get annoyed with that or like frustrated because I'm
Mm.
like, I am kind of a fast person and I like to quickly learn things and move on and like on to
Yeah.
the, you know, I have that Vata kind of um,
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini and I got a lot of Gemini in my chart. I got a lot of air. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I just want to like, okay. But I'm like, oh my God, no, this is actually a being that now is going to walk with me for the rest of my life, but in a totally different way. And I'm talking to her and lighting candles and giving her flowers and It's super deep, super deep.
Nancy. I just like the the like level of being with all the different parts of yourself, like being with the deeper self who like can trust the experience and be the cosmic mother, baby, dyad, and then also like having space and reverence and compassion for like the very human and egoic and whatnot parts of you to like have their moment too, I think is really like such a beautiful medicine that you're bringing forward. And even in just the ways that you've shared your experience, like I've read the comments on your Instagram posts, like I know how it's resonating with other women. Like you are already transforming, like you said, shame and all of these things for the collective. And it's just, yeah, it both breaks my heart for you, because like, yeah, as your friend, but like, it's also just such a beautiful, beautiful gift that you have. Yeah.
And it is like that. Thank you. And and I think most women that I've now spoken to, because I've spoken to a lot of lost mothers now, and it's both. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
how could this baby be like the most beautiful gift and also the most tragic, just awful thing I've ever walked through,
Yeah.
but also you would never not do it again. It's very weird. Like
Yeah.
if somebody were to ask me, because I've asked myself this, would you, knowing everything that was going to happen, would you still do it? Would you still get pregnant with her? And I'm like, of course. Yeah. Like, I love
Yeah.
her. I love our time that we got to have in the womb. I love that she's
Mhm.
still with me. And I don't know, life is so trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it only gets like way more mystical as you get older, I think, because
Mm,
naturally you just do start to walk with death a little bit more, even if
yeah.
it's not like your own baby. As
Yeah.
you get older, though, like people start dying around you a bit more, like because other people start getting older and that's just the natural process. Or like you start to come up against the end of your fertile years that you already start processing in your 40s. Like there's all these like death, kind of like just a constant letting go.
Yeah.
And in that letting go, there's so much just vastness that opens up to understand that the present moment truly is everything,
Mm.
you know?
Uh, yeah. Gosh, I mean, such, yeah, like potent, like simple truth, but that like it sometimes takes a lot for us to receive.
Mhm. Totally.
Mm. Oh, Nancy, is there anything else you want to share about this experience?
Ah, there's so
I know.
much.
I mean,
I mean, but I guess I just want to actually put myself out there. Like, if you happen to be listening to this and you happen to have gone through some kind of loss, please find me because I've been holding like free calls for women. I just really
Mhm.
like to hear their stories, and stories
Yeah.
are medicine, and you're not alone. And most women will walk with loss. Like a lot of the times it's first trimester
Mhm.
miscarriage, but that's still really devastating.
Yeah.
It's different, but it's not devastating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just know that you're not alone if you feel the bigness of that situation, of that experience, because there's not a lot of like talk about it.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely something that isn't like a big part of like the birth world, like the narrative. And I think it's so important. And yeah, I'm just so like, I don't know, in admiration and awe of you for the spaces you've been able to like cultivate and the space you've been able to give yourself and other women to like feel and experience and share and process together. It's God, so important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope to do more of it in the next year as well. I don't know exactly like what it's going to turn into, but I feel something like brewing there.
Yeah. That's exciting. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I mean, you've given us so much of your the own wisdom that's come from your womb stories, and I'm so grateful. I love to ask women at the very end to share a piece of womb wisdom, just like one last little nugget to leave with the women listening. So if you'd like to share whatever is coming up for you, I would love to hear it.
I guess I just want to say your womb knows. Like, not wrong. It's a guide together with your heart. It's like a compass that you can use. And I really think that those deep voices of truth rise from that power center as women. And you have to get a little bit quiet to listen, to really hear it. But once you start to tune into that womb's voice and you start to say yes, and so like that's what I want to communicate is like trust that sacred yes and trust the sacred no's or trust wherever the guidance is taking you. Because once you start getting in flow with that compass and actually letting it guide your life, you just can't be led astray. And like in the case of my story, it's hard, it is hard to look back and be like, whoa, my womb was actually guiding me to stay right where I was and birth my daughter and let her die peacefully in my hands. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like, that's super intense. But I just can't not trust that that
Yeah,
was exactly what was supposed to happen. And so I feel like I've been initiated in a very fiery kind of way, with the
absolutely.
truth. But the more you trust it, the more you deepen into it. And then you just become kind of unshakable in some ways. Like nobody can come and tell me that any part of my story is wrong, and I'm
Yeah.
actually going to believe them because I know my womb's truth, you know? It's very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love the way you said that too. Like, no one can come tell me that it's wrong. It's like that, like your deepest truth. Like, you know that that is true. It's not this like heady thing. It's this like very embodied knowing, and it's inarguable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm. Nancy, this has been so, yeah, so deep and powerful and inspiring for me. I love talking with you always, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to like hear your stories more deeply. And I know that this is going to be such a powerful episode for so many women for so many different reasons. And I know women will also want to be looking up your offerings and such. And you've shared kind of here and there, but if you want to share, more succinctly where women can find you and what's up in your worlds, I would love that.
Yeah, thank you. So on Instagram, I'm Nancy Lucina, so at Nancy Lucina, Lucina. And my website is nancylucina.com, and you can find all my offerings there. Two other offerings that really have to do with the menstrual cycle. One of them that is going to be available probably when this launches is the Medicine Wheel Within. So that's a kind of a very mini version of the Blood Mystery School, which is what Natalie was referencing earlier, which she took with us. So the Blood Mystery School is a deep dive, but the Medicine Wheel Within is like a kind of mini introduction to the archetypes and the four phases of the cycle and how you can really care for yourself. So if you're just getting started, that's actually a great course. And then if
Mm.
you want to go really deep with me and my co-creator, Kristen Hauser, we open enrollment once a year. I think by the time this podcast launches, and we'll have just closed enrollment. So
Yeah.
catch us again in like a year if that is still on your radar.
Well,
Uh,
it's
thank you. Yeah, you can join the wait list and just start learning about it. And we have some free offerings that you can get. I have a couple of free meditations. Yeah, even have a sound healing on my website. I don't know.
mm.
Like, I never talk about it, but it's called Waters of the Womb.
Ooh.
Um, it's like an hour-long sound healing journey. And I also have a Menarch masterclass. So how to teach, no, how to lead young women through that portal of getting their first bleed and how to do
Mm.
the ceremony for them. So yeah, there's a lot happening. NancyLucina.com.
Yeah, I mean, you've got like so many of the phases of womanhood covered. I just love that there's like kind of a little something for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I've been playing with opening up a Substack and doing more writing, especially around this journey. not there yet. Like I actually started one, but I haven't. I think it's just Nancy Lucina. So maybe
Oh,
that. Maybe,
that's exciting.
yeah. And I was telling Natalie before we hit record, I'm feeling some like fresh energy want to come in. I do music as well. If you go to Spotify and just look up Nancy Lucina, I have a few like simple songs. Some of them you can bring into your women's circles.
Hmm.
Um, and I want to do some more with music this year because I feel like there's something with my voice that I want to put out there more, that there's some kind of codes that want to come through.
Yeah, that's amazing. I listen to your music on Spotify all the time.
Oh, cool.
And like I have like a morning practice, like 30 minutes. I like sit at my altar and journal and sing and, maybe stretch a little. And often the songs that want to come through are like ones of yours that you taught us in the Blood Mysteries. So I'm singing your songs all the time.
Love that. See, I need to put more out. I love that you told
You
me that.
do. I mean, you like your lyrics, they're just so like beautiful and true. They just like resonate very deeply. And so I'm excited to see what else you come up with this year.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. This was really fun. And like, I had no idea we were going to go into my New York days and all
I
the
know.
way. So it's kind of cool. You get like a really, like a lot of my life story. It's kind of cool. Thank
I
you.
know. I'm really grateful for your time and like just everything you've shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you for tuning into the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it could reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle, in the show notes below. There, you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions, shop the herbal shop, and any group programs that I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.